My wife claimed I was too emotionally unavailable. So she took our daughter and moved in with my therapist. I wish I was making that up. God, I wish this whole thing was a twisted dream I'd wake up from with my daughter still asleep down the hall and my world still intact. But it happened. And the moment I found out, it was a Tuesday. Rainy. I remember because I had just parked outside the office and sat there, watching the drops snake down my windshield like tears I wasn't allowed to cry. Her name is Claire. Was, I guess, my wife. We met when we were both 23, wide-eyed and ambitious, working at the same mid-sized advertising firm in Chicago. I was the quiet one with good ideas and poor timing. She was the star who made every room feel smaller when she entered. I thought I got lucky when she said yes to a coffee. When she said yes to forever. I thought I'd won the lottery. We were married by 26. Parents by 30. Our daughter, Lila, was everything. Is everything. Even now. Even after the chaos. Even after she was weaponized against me. It started slowly, like all breakdowns do. First it was the silence. The absence of affection. Then came the comments. You never open up. I feel like I'm married to a ghost. Lila deserves a dad who isn't just a presence. The worst part? She wasn't wrong. I have baggage. Stuff I don't talk about. A dad who never hugged me unless he was drunk. A mom who disappeared into Valium after he died. I learned early to hold everything in, because letting it out either got you hit or ignored. So I got good at swallowing emotion. I thought providing, protecting, being there physically, that counted. That it meant something. Claire didn't think so. She wanted more. More words. More warmth. More vulnerability. And I wanted to give it to her. I just didn't know how. So I started therapy. His name was Dr. Jason Hartwell. Mid-40s. Clean cut. Soothing voice. He had this way of making you feel like even your ugliest thoughts were just misdirected needs. That's what he called them. Needs. For once, someone was listening. Not judging. Not demanding. Just listening. Week after week, I peeled back layers I didn't know I had. Talked about the nights my dad threw plates. The day I found my mom passed out, blood on the bathroom tiles. The way I flinched when Claire raised her voice, even when she wasn't angry. The way I shut down. Dr. Hartwell nodded. He guided. He told me I was making progress. That vulnerability was a muscle, and I was slowly stretching it. I even told Claire, proud, after one session. I talked about Dad today. Really talked about him. She smiled, kissed my forehead. That's good, baby. That's really good. Then she started asking questions. Innocent at first. What does your therapist say about us? About your marriage? I'd paraphrase. Tell her the gist. I thought it made her feel included. Later, she asked if she could meet him. Just for a session. To better understand how to support you. I asked Dr. Hartwell. He said it could be helpful. That couples sometimes benefit from shared space, even briefly. So she came. Sat in that soft beige chair. Crossed her legs and smiled. They got along too well. That should have been my first clue. But I told myself I was lucky. Lucky my wife and therapist had a connection. That maybe we could fix this. That maybe, just maybe, this was the start of healing. It wasn't. It was reconnaissance. Because 3 months after that joint session, I came home to an empty house. Not entirely empty, my things were still there. But Lila's toys? Gone. Claire's clothes? Gone. The photo albums. Her wedding ring. Even the print of Lake Michigan she loved, gone. On the kitchen counter, a note. You need time to find yourself. I need someone who sees me. Lila will be with me. No signature. No contact. No warning. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Texts left unread. I called her sister. Her best friend. No one knew where she was. Or so they claimed. Then one night, while scrolling Instagram like a desperate man hunting shadows, I saw it. A photo. Claire. Lila. And behind them, barely in frame, that familiar soft blue shirt. That clean-cut face. Dr. Hartwell. My therapist. I stared at that photo for hours. It wasn't even a good picture. Blurry. Candid. Probably snapped by Lila. But my eyes locked on him. Hartwell, half smiling, mid-laugh, holding a paper cup like he belonged in that moment. Like he belonged with them. My therapist. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I remember my fingers trembling, the phone slick with sweat. I zoomed in. Zoomed out. I kept trying to convince myself it wasn't him. Maybe it was some cousin. A neighbor. A stranger with coincidental bone structure and betrayal carved into his damn jawline. But it was him. I knew it. Deep down. And still, I needed more. So I dug. I created a fake Instagram. Followed Claire's new account. She'd blocked me from her main profile, but didn't think to make the new one private. It was all there. Selfies at farmers markets. Brunches. Lila in her lap. Claire in sunglasses, smiling in unfamiliar kitchens that sure as hell weren't hers. And Hartwell, always at the edges. Barely in frame. But always there. Like mold. Quiet and growing. One picture nearly made me throw my phone across the room. It was Lila, baking cookies. Frosting on her nose. Claire captioned it. Sunday sweetness with our favorite girls. Not my daughter. Our favorite girls. The possessive. I called Hartwell's office the next day. The receptionist answered with that same peppy tone I used to find reassuring. Hi, Dr. Hartwell's office. How can I help you? I tried to keep my voice steady. Yes, I'd like to schedule a session. This is Nate Gallagher. Pause. Oh, Mr. Gallagher. I'm sorry. Dr. Hartwell is no longer available to you as a patient. Excuse me. He has terminated the therapeutic relationship per his ethical boundaries. You should have received an email. Email. Right. I checked. It was there. Sent the day after Claire left. One paragraph. Cold. Clinical. Effective immediately. I will no longer be available to provide therapeutic services. Please seek alternative care. This termination is final and non-negotiable. No explanation. No reference to 3 years of unraveling myself in front of him. Just a door slammed shut. I didn't scream. Didn't threaten. I simply hung up and sat in my car for an hour, staring at the dashboard, listening to the tick of the cooling engine. That night, I drank. More than I should have. Whiskey mostly. The good kind. The kind I bought to celebrate milestones that never came. I sat on the back porch, staring out into the dark, thinking about every conversation I ever had in that therapy chair. I told him everything. About my father. About Claire. About Lila. About the times I felt like leaving. The thoughts I never voiced aloud. The fears. The shame. I told him things no one else knew. And he took all that. And used it. Used me. It wasn't just unethical. It was predatory. The next morning, I made 2 calls. First, to a lawyer. Second, to the licensing board. I told them what I knew. What I suspected. I sent the screenshots. The photos. The timeline. The woman on the other end of the board call sounded alarmed. If what you're alleging is true, this could lead to a full investigation. Do you have any written communication between you and Dr. Hartwell suggesting a personal relationship with your wife? I didn't. Of course I didn't. Because they were smart. No texts. No emails. Just whispers in private rooms and smiles and filtered photos. Still, the woman assured me it was enough to flag a formal inquiry. My lawyer was less optimistic. Without concrete proof, he said, it becomes a matter of speculation. We can push for custody modification based on instability, but unless there's clear evidence that your daughter is at risk. He trailed off. And that's when it hit me. They were winning. Not because they were right, but because they were careful. Because while I was unraveling, they were rehearsing. That was the real betrayal. They didn't just fall into each other. They planned this. And I would burn it all down to expose them. You ever feel like you're screaming in a soundproof room? That's what the next week felt like. I told people what happened, my lawyer, my sister, 2 close friends. They all gave me the same look, somewhere between sympathy and disbelief. Are you sure it's your therapist? My sister asked, cautious, like she didn't want to poke the bear, but also didn't buy the whole story. I showed her the screenshots. She went pale. Jesus, Nate. Yeah, that about summed it up. I wanted justice. Revenge. Something. But what I got was radio silence. The board said it would take weeks, maybe months, to investigate. My lawyer said not to contact Claire directly. That everything I did or said could be weaponized in court. So I waited. And in the meantime, I missed my daughter. That was the part that crushed me most. I went from bedtime stories and school lunches to nothing. No calls. No updates. I didn't even know where she was living. I filed a motion for temporary custody visitation, and that dragged the truth into the light. Claire was living with Hartwell. They claim it's just a temporary arrangement, my lawyer said. Bullshit. Of course it is. But they're framing it as a mutual support situation. Nothing romantic. I laughed. Loud, bitter. You think anyone's buying that? He shrugged. Doesn't matter. The court's not in the business of moral outrage. They care about stability. Safety. And according to Claire's filing, I was the unstable one. Emotionally volatile. Distant. Possibly depressed. And those were the nice claims. The kicker? She backed it up with excerpts from my therapy sessions. She what? My lawyer nodded grimly. Apparently, Hartwell documented some of your sessions. She's presenting them as evidence of your instability. That's privileged. That's illegal. It is. But they're arguing she received them through legal cohabitation access. I felt like I was going to vomit. Everything I told that man, every tear, every confession, every cracked truth I bled into that beige office, now weaponized against me. And worse, no one seemed to be stopping them. That night, I printed every photo I had, every Instagram post, every blurry image of Hartwell near Lila. I laid them out on my dining table like evidence in a crime scene. I drew lines, dates, connections, built a timeline. Then I made another call. Not to a lawyer, not to the board, to a journalist. Her name was Karina Barlow, investigative reporter. I found her by accident, chasing a link about a therapist scandal in New York. She'd broken the story. I sent her an email with the subject line, "Therapist stole my family and is using my secrets in court." 2 hours later, she called. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. Every word. And for the first time in weeks, I felt heard. Karina didn't say much while I talked. Just asked a few clarifying questions, jotted notes, and let me pour it all out. I didn't hold back. I told her about the affair, the Instagram photos, the therapy violations, the custody fight, the weaponized session notes. When I finally ran out of steam, she said something I wasn't expecting. "I believe you." Just those 3 words. But they cracked something in me. Because up until then, everyone else had approached me like I was radioactive. Too emotional. Too close to the edge. But Karina? She saw the story and the man drowning inside it. She promised discretion. Said she wouldn't publish anything without verification. But she also said this. If even half of what you're saying is true, this could blow a hole through Hartwell's license. I sent her everything. Photos, documents, emails, even the audio files I had from 1 or 2 early sessions. I'd recorded them with his permission to revisit things later. His voice, calm and composed, encouraging me to trust him, to tell him everything. That audio, Karina said it might be gold. 3 days later, she reached back out. "I've been doing some digging," she said. "Hartwell's name isn't clean. Apparently, he had a sealed complaint on record from 5 years ago. A former patient, female, claimed emotional manipulation, blurred boundaries. It didn't escalate to anything formal, but it was enough to make him switch practices and go solo. There's a pattern here," Karina told me. And the second she said that, I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. Meanwhile, court hearings started moving. Claire showed up looking pristine. Pearl earrings, navy dress, like a walking Hallmark ad. She spoke calmly, measured. She painted me as emotionally stunted, cold, distant, a man who shut down during arguments, who couldn't handle confrontation, who scared our daughter with his moods. It was all true, but it wasn't the whole truth. When it was my turn, I told the judge I'd been in therapy, that I was working on my communication, that my progress had been used against me, that the man I confided in was now living with my wife. Claire's lawyer objected, said it was speculative, said I was trying to derail the hearing with personal vendettas. The judge listened, took notes, said he needed more. And that's when Karina called again. "You need to see this," she said. She forwarded me a message thread from a former intern of Hartwell's. The woman claimed she saw emails between Hartwell and Claire dating back a year, long before the split, before the joint session, before any of it. The emails were gone now, wiped, she said. But she remembered one line clear as day. "He doesn't see you, but I do." That line hit me like a punch to the lungs, because I remember Claire saying it to me once, after one of our worst fights, after I'd shut down completely and retreated into silence. I thought she meant it like comfort. Now I know where she got it. From him. Karina said she was planning to publish. She had the sources, the timeline, my recordings, enough to raise serious ethical questions. "You okay with that?" she asked. I thought about Lila, about what she'd hear, what she'd read someday. "Yeah," I said. "Blow it open." Because this wasn't about keeping things tidy anymore. This was war. The article dropped on a Thursday. It hit the digital press at 7:03 a.m., and by 9, my phone was melting. The headline was brutal. Licensed therapist accused of relationship with former patient's wife. Allegations of breach, exploitation, and custody weaponization. There it was. Everything. My story. Karina didn't sensationalize it. She didn't need to. The facts were scandalous enough. She laid out the timeline, the therapy sessions, the Instagram posts, the quotes from the intern, the sealed complaint from 5 years ago. Even included a clip from one of my recordings. Hartwell's voice, gentle, telling me, "Sometimes, emotional distance is a survival mechanism. Let's work on understanding where it comes from." And then the quote from Claire, "He doesn't see you, but I do." Side by side. It was damning. My lawyer called first. "Brace yourself," he said. "This is going to move things. Not necessarily in court, but publicly." Then texts. Friends I hadn't heard from in years. Some offered support. Others just wanted the tea. By noon, it hit Twitter. Then Reddit. Then morning talk shows. They didn't use our names, not at first. But locals knew. It didn't take much sleuthing. Claire went silent. No statements. No social posts. But Hartwell? He made a video. It was short. Polished. Him in a book-lined office, blazer and soft lighting. "I want to address recent claims being made against me in a sensationalized article. While I cannot discuss specific clients or personal matters, I want to assure the public that I have always upheld the ethical standards of my profession. Any suggestion otherwise is both false and deeply hurtful." He turned the camera off with this calm, composed sadness. Like he was the victim. The comments section exploded. Some believed him. Of course they did. He had the voice, the look, the calm. But others didn't. People started coming forward in the comments. Former clients. Colleagues. One woman said she always felt like he crossed emotional lines. Another said he used to compliment her in sessions, made her uncomfortable. Nothing concrete. But the trickle started. And then came the email. From Claire. No subject line. Just one sentence. "You didn't have to destroy everything." I stared at it for an hour before responding. "You already did." Send. No reply. The next court hearing was different. The judge was colder. Asked sharper questions. Claire looked rattled. Her lawyer fumbled. My lawyer leaned over. Whispered. "The article did more than we expected. They're on the defensive now." For the first time since this began, I felt like I wasn't losing. I felt like maybe, just maybe, the truth was catching up. The next week was chaos. Hartwell's practice went into meltdown mode. His website vanished. Yelp reviews turned toxic. A dozen former clients wrote long, scathing accounts. One even claimed he flirted with her during grief counseling. But the real bombshell came when the licensing board launched a formal investigation. They contacted me directly, asked for everything. The audio, the emails, the timeline, and they subpoenaed his notes. That's when I found out something new. Hartwell had doctored his notes. The version submitted to the court? Sanitized, edited, made to portray me as paranoid, controlling, emotionally erratic. Gone were the conversations about Claire's withdrawal, her passive aggression, the subtle ways she chipped at my self-worth. He'd built a profile of me as unstable. And Claire? She was never even mentioned. The board investigator said flatly, "This is not standard documentation practice. This suggests deliberate misrepresentation." Misrepresentation. No, it was fraud. They asked me not to contact Hartwell, not to reach out to Claire. Let them do their job. So I waited. And while I waited, I got a call I hadn't expected. From Lila. Her voice was small, scared, 12 years old, but sounding like 5. "Dad, why are people saying Mommy's boyfriend is bad?" I froze. I wanted to scream. To say, "Because he is, baby. Because he stole our family." But I didn't. I breathed. "Where are you, sweetheart?" "Still at the Blue House. But Mommy's been crying a lot. She yells more now. And Jason isn't here as much." "Jason." She used his first name. "Did something happen, Lila?" Silence. Then, I heard her say she made a mistake. That he was supposed to fix us. My throat tightened. "Can you do me a favor, kiddo? Pack your backpack. Just in case. I might see you soon." That night, I got the text from my lawyer. "Emergency hearing granted. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Claire must have sensed what was coming. She filed a motion to delay. Denied. The hearing moved fast. My lawyer presented the altered notes, the board's findings, the article, the public backlash, and finally, the call from Lila, which we had recorded for legal protection. The judge leaned back, folded his hands. "Mrs. Gallagher, until this investigation is complete, and given the disturbing nature of these revelations, I am granting temporary full custody to Mr. Gallagher. Effective immediately." Claire gasped, tried to stand. He's manipulating everything. He made me look like. The judge held up a hand. This is not about you. This is about a child. I walked out of that courtroom shaking. But not from fear. From relief. I had my daughter back. But the war wasn't over. It was just entering its final phase. I picked Lila up that afternoon. She stood outside the courthouse with a social worker, clutching a stuffed rabbit she hadn't held in years. When she saw me, she ran. 12 years old, and still small enough to fold into my arms. She didn't cry. Neither did I. We just held on. Like survivors. The ride home was quiet. Lila stared out the window while I tried to remember how to breathe like a father again. Every block felt like shedding a layer of failure. When we pulled into the driveway, she looked at the house, then at me. Are we safe now? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Yeah, baby. We are. That night, we made spaghetti and watched cartoons. She fell asleep on the couch, head on my lap, like she used to. And for the first time in months, I let myself believe in something like peace. But peace doesn't last when damage runs deep. Claire showed up 3 days later. Not at the house. At my job. She walked into the office like a hurricane in heels. Security tried to intercept her, but she flashed her last name and marched straight through. You think this is over? She hissed in the hallway. My coworkers scattered like birds. You humiliated me. You destroyed my relationship, my reputation. You turned Lila against me. No, I said. Calm. Clear. You did that. All I did was tell the truth. Her eyes were wild. I made one mistake. You made months of them. You let our daughter live with a man who used my trauma as a stepping stone. She flinched. Good. She should. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just looked her dead in the eye. I'm done protecting your version of the story. That night, Karina called again. You okay? Heard she caused a scene. She's unraveling. Karina paused. You still want the follow-up published? I thought about it. About Lila. About every man or woman out there scared to open up because of stories like mine. Yeah, I said. Finish it. A week later, part 2 went live. When therapy becomes predation, the fallout of a broken code. It included statements from the board, from other victims, anonymous quotes from former clients, and a piece of an affidavit from the intern who witnessed the emails. Hartwell's license was suspended pending full review. Claire deleted her social media. But the biggest shift? Lila started smiling again. Not big, not always. But enough. Enough to know that something in her had begun to heal. And me? I started writing again. Not for court. Not for records. For me. Because I had spent years living in silence. And now, I had a story to tell. 6 months later, the final ruling came in. Hartwell's license, permanently revoked. The board concluded he had engaged in a gross ethical breach, citing misuse of privileged information, boundary violations, and a pattern of inappropriate relationships with clients or their family members. He tried to appeal, failed, then disappeared from public view. Claire moved in with her sister across the state. We agreed on supervised visits, once a month. Lila didn't resist, but she didn't ask for more. I think she needed distance too. She started therapy, with someone we both vetted together. A woman named Tasha who spoke to Lila like a human, not a case. I sat in on the first 2 sessions. Just listened. Just watched my daughter begin to untangle what that man and her mother did to us both. It'll take years. Maybe forever. But the fact that she wants to talk? That's everything. As for Claire, I don't hate her. That surprised me. For a long time, I thought I would. That I'd spend the rest of my life resenting her. But when someone loses everything trying to chase a fantasy, sometimes the punishment is built into the lesson. She lost her career, her image, her access. She lost the trust of her daughter. She didn't lose me, because somewhere along the way, I realized she never really had me. She had a version of me I built to survive. The quiet husband, the provider, the man who didn't complain. But not the man I became. Not the man I am now. I still go to therapy. Weekly. I still flinch when people raise their voices. Still fight the instinct to shut down. But I show up. Every time. And now, when Lila hugs me before bed and says, "Love you, Dad," I don't just nod and smile. I say it back. Every time. Because silence doesn't protect us. It just buries us alive. And I've finally learned how to dig myself out.